Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Parcc Fall Preview webinar for district leaders. We thank you very much for joining us today, probably after a very long day at school or at work. My name is Callie Riley, and I'm the Associate Director for State Engagement for Parcc Inc. We are pleased to have with us today Angela Chamness, Division Administrator for the Illinois State Board of Education, and Jeff Nellhaus, Parcc Inc.'s Chief of Assessment. Unfortunately, Tim Farquhar, originally slated to help us out today, could not join us due to an unexpected event. Angela will be doing a brief recap of the first year of the Parcc assessment. Some of the information she covers may be familiar to you, but some might be a nice refresh. Jeff will then walk you through some mock score reports, and I'll talk a little bit about some new resources for educators and parents. At any time, you can type in your questions throughout the presentation. We will have plenty of time at the end to answer them, so we highly encourage you to, as you're thinking about your questions, go ahead and enter them into the chat. And with that, I will turn the floor over to Angela to get us started. Angela?
Thank you, Callie. Good afternoon. We're happy to have you with us here. To get us started, we'd like to talk a little bit about the primary objectives of the Parcc assessment system. The Parcc assessments have multiple priorities and purposes. One of these priorities and purposes is to determine whether students are college and career ready or on track. For grades 3 through 8 in the early high school assessments, students have an on-track designation if they reach levels 4 or 5. This on-track designation is an indication of their readiness for the next level or the next course. At the culminating or terminating assessment, Algebra 2, Integrated Math 3, or ELA 3, that designation is a college and career readiness determination that's applied again at levels 4 and 5. Another objective of the Parcc assessment system is to provide tools to assess student learning and support instruction during the school year. One of the ways in which the Parcc assessment system is a complete system is the inclusion of non-summative portions of the entire system. And I apologize if you're hearing the background noise. The non-summative portions of the system, which will soon become available to you, but those coordinate along with the summative portions of the system to help strengthen the data support that's available for to help support instruction throughout the year. Reporting comparable results across schools, districts, and the member states, and growth and performance, as well as absolute achievement or goals of the system, as well as generating valid and reliable information to inform instruction and accountability decisions within systems. This year, for the first time, many states also transitioned to technology-based assessments, and we were able to use this technology for a range of purposes, including increasing student access to the assessments, providing new accommodations and accessibility features because the platform was based on a universally accessible design principles, engaging students and creating efficiencies in the administration, scoring, and reporting, many of which you'll see bear out in the future years to come as we're able to turn score reporting around more expediently. Test administration in the 2015 school year was an exciting progress for us as we were able to administer to over 5 million students across 12 states. In just one day, over 1.2 million students were able to access the test using technology, with upwards of 204,000 students in 1 hour, and at a peak, 1 million testers per day across 5 days. But really the key to all of this is the thousands of hours that were contributed by thousands of educators during the development stages of the test. Development that began long before the test was ever administered, and development that continues today and moving forward. Educators involved in all stages of the process: item development, content and bias review, data review, performance level setting that occurred this summer. All of this represents an enormous accomplishment. That said, we've learned a lot throughout the administration. We've been listening carefully to the things that you've told us, the necessary changes. And one of those test design changes that you'll see bear out in the spring administration of the upcoming assessment is a 90-minute reduction. The governing board voted to make a number of changes to the test design related to the structure and design in order to make administration more achievable in your schools and districts. So you will see overall testing times across test units per grade. On your screen, you'll see those differences between the 2014-15 administration and the 2015-2016 administration. Now, some students will experience a field test of the ELA performance-based task, and this means that they will not see the same reduction in their test time, but that will be a limited sample. And we'd also want to be clear that these changes will not result in the loss of performance task in ELA literacy or mathematics, with the exception of Algebra 2 and Integrated Math 3 at the high school level. And even where there is a loss of those performance tasks, we've been the design groups have been very carefully considering how to bundle such that the tasks that are removed will still enable the subclaims to be measured accurately so that we can do full reporting as we have in the past, and the results will be comparable from year to year. Another desire that was voiced strongly across the states was the need to consolidate testing into one window. So you'll notice in the spring administration 15-16 that the assessment will be given, both the performance-based assessment and end-of-year components, combined into one window, and schools will have up to 30 school days in which to test. We expect that most will be able to complete testing in 2 weeks, depending on their schedule or the availability of the technology to them. But we do think that this will be a huge support, and both in terms of administration and also for many schools and districts in terms of the data cleanup that's necessary afterwards, in terms of not having to review data from both a PBA and EOY window. It will all be consolidated into one. As well, fewer testing units will be a key feature. So the redesigned ELA literacy tests are composed of 3 units, and the math are either 3 or 4, depending on the grade level. You see that laid out in front of you in a test, or in the chart in front of you. And although it's not reflected right here on the chart, I think the more consistent unit times of those tests will also be a support in administration. So you will be able to plan in blocks of time that hopefully make more sense across your day and across your schedule. So we're looking for uniformity among test times and hopefully more similarity to the class times in which you are accustomed to administering tests and administering instruction, so that there is some similarity there, some ability to schedule accordingly. That's a little bit about what to expect in the upcoming administration, but I know that many of you are thinking about what's happening right now and when we're going to see the first score report. So here's a diagram that illustrates this road towards the first score report. As you're well aware, we administered the Parcc assessment in the spring of 2015. During the months July and August, we had performance level setting events for both high school and grades 3 through 8. Many of your educators may have been participants, as we had a number of educators from all of the states contributing to that work. And then throughout the months of August and September, state K-12 and higher ed chiefs reviewed and voted on the recommended threshold or cut scores in order to establish the performance levels. As we move into the fall, we're now expecting to have assessment results available to you through score reports later on this fall, and we're moving rapidly towards those dates. You will be seeing sample reports later on in this presentation. So how exactly did we get there? What about the performance level setting process? This summer, educators and experts, content area experts, determined the scores that students would need to achieve or earn on the assessment in order to land in a particular performance level. States nominated stakeholders to participate in 12 in-person panels to review the assessment, and then those recommendations moved forward to the Parcc Governing Board for approval. These grade span panels were comprised of K-12 educators and also post-secondary faculty that met together in week-long segments to very carefully go through actual forms of the assessment and consider step-by-step what students, the assessment items that students looked at, and what students at the borderline of each performance level group would need to achieve, the points that they would need to achieve on those items, or the points they would be expected to achieve if they were at that particular borderline level. They had rounds of discussions, very engaged discussions. They looked at impact data, and they made very difficult decisions about what it meant to be at each performance level. And in the end, they moved those recommendations forward. And in front of you, you can see now the 5 performance levels that delineate the knowledge, skills, and practices that students at each level are able to demonstrate. So at level 1, students demonstrated that they did not yet meet expectations. At level 2, that they partially met those expectations. At level 3, that they approached expectations. At 4, that they met expectations. And at level 5, that they exceeded expectations. And as we mentioned earlier, level 4 and 5 is considered college and career ready at the culminating or terminating high school assessment level. And that means that at participating colleges and universities, students can enter their freshman year, their credit-bearing coursework, without having to take any remedial courses. So now you'll see the score release timeline. Score reports are expected to arrive in districts in November and December, and we anticipate that districts will send them out shortly after they're received. So you can see that high school score reports are expected in mid to late November, with 3 through 8 score reports following in December. And Jeff, I'll hand it over to you to talk to us a little bit about the score report.
Great. Thanks a lot, Angela. And let me just introduce myself real quickly again. My name is Jeff Nellhaus. I'm the Chief of Assessment here at Parcc Inc. Been here for about 5 years now. Prior to coming to Parcc Inc., I was at the Massachusetts Department of Education, where I headed up their assessment program and was Deputy Commissioner of Education as well. So I'm really delighted to be here to go over the, some of the score reports that you'll be soon receiving to report the results of the 14th of the assessments that were administered last spring. If you go to the next slide, this is a picture here of the, I'll call it the parent or the family report. And you're going to receive one of these reports for each subject area in each grade level. So this is an English language arts and literacy report. It's for grade 6. It's a 2-sided report, so on the front side of the English report, you get all the metrics, all the results, if you will, and we'll be going over those. On the back side of the report, and I'll be showing you a little bit of what's on the back side, is more interpretive information for you, but there'll be a separate report for English and math, so you'll receive 2 reports for each student, and actually when these reports come to the district, you'll get 2 copies of each. So you can keep one and send one home to the student's family. So those are just I'll also say that this report, not only will you receive hard copies of this report, but you'll be able to view this report in Pearson Access Next as well. So you'll be able to review it online. You'll get hard copies of it. And during the beginning of the school year, many of the reports, the school and district reports, the parent reports, school roster reports, item analysis reports, they'll all be available to you through Parcc's data management and reporting system. So I'm really just kind of tip at the iceberg here and showing you a little bit of really just kind of diving in on the parent report because I want to explain the metrics to you, which those metrics will appear on many of the other reports as well. So if we go to the next slide, this is a closer look at the top half of the report I just showed you, the grade 6 English Language Arts report. And let me just first draw your attention to the fact, I think there's, even in the first two paragraphs there, I think there's some important information for the parent. First, that our goal was to make sure the parents understood that this report was going to help them understand the extent to which their child is meeting grade level expectations. So of all the focus groups we did, we wanted to make sure parents knew what the target is, and that's important. Number two, it states that this is just a single measure of the student's performance. And really you need to consider much more than this to make a holistic determination about how the student is doing. Certainly, I think you'll all agree that one test is not sufficient to really understand how well about a student's achievement. Now, Angela told you that we have 5 performance levels, and you can see those depicted in the graphic in the middle. So you have levels 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, to help understand even in more, I would say more precise information, you want to know where in the level each student is performing. You know, so they're performing at the high, middle, or low end. So not only do we have the performance levels, we have a score scale that runs along those performance levels. So you can see the Parcc score scale is going to start at 650, and it runs to 850. So those are the highest and the lowest scale scores that are attainable. The threshold score for level 2 is 700. The threshold score for level 3 is 725. And the threshold score for level 4, and level 4 is remember, that's getting to level 4 is meeting expectations. So the minimum score, scale score for meeting expectations would be a 750. The threshold score for level 5, that's going to vary from subject area to subject area, grade to grade. And we're in the process of finalizing the scaling for that, but that's going to vary. But the 700, the 725, and the 750 are going to be set for levels 2, 3, and 4, and those will be very memorable to you. So even if you hear a student score, knowing 700, 725, and 750, you'll know what level they're in. I think that'll become quite obvious to you after a while. So you can see this student scored at level 3, and that's just off to the left in that little yellow box. And under that it says, your child performed at level 3 and earned a score, in this case, of 729, I believe it is. So you can see it's giving both of those metrics for the child. And then below that yellow box, it says students performing at levels 4 and 5 met or exceeded expectations. So we wanted to make it very clear here to parents and to you all what the expectation is here. What is the level of the score that's required to meet expectations? Now, in addition to understanding the child's score and their performance level, you'll see underneath that graphic some normative or comparative information is provided as well. The school average score, the district average score, the state average score, and the Parcc average score. And parents often like to know, well, how did my student stack up not only in relation to your performance criteria, but to students in their school district, state, and the consortium. So that's nicely provided there as well. Now, I think one of the hallmarks of the Parcc English Language Arts Assessment is that it also will report out separate numerical scores for reading and writing. So you get an overall English Language Arts score with a performance level, and then we have these scales for reading and writing. And you can see the scale, if you focus on the reading, way over to the left, it says the reading score range is 10 to 90, all right? And if you go a little bit over to the right, you'll see for writing, the writing score range goes from 10 to 60. So the question is, how do you make sense of the child's score? In this case, the child scored 44 in reading. Well, what does that mean? Well, we didn't set performance levels for reading and writing. It's just at the ELA level that we have performance levels. But we provide some comparative data here to help make sense of this child's scale score or numerical score in reading and writing. So you can see in that box to the right of the 44, if you're looking at that score of 44, we provide the average of students just meeting expectations. So of the students who, in this case, it's the students who scored 750. What was their average score? It's a 50 in this case, okay? So the average score of students who scored 750 on this scale from 10 to 90 was 50. This student scored a 44. So you can see that this student didn't score quite as well as students who are overall meeting expectations. It's sort of a, it's a way to make sense of, in relation to meeting expectations, how did the student do in reading? In addition to that, you get that normative information about the school average in reading, the district average reading, and the state average in reading. So we think this is going to be just additional information to help you. Often we did have a very comprehensive, the test in English language arts takes a number of hours. We wanted to make sure you had more information than just their overall score and their performance level. So you have reading and writing information. If we go to the next page, you can see that within reading and within writing, there's even additional information. Now, this information is not numerical, but it does kind of give you an idea of the strengths and weaknesses in each of those areas. So I would call the reading and writing area subscores, and this is what I call indicators within each of those subscores. So the indicators within reading are literary text, informational text, and vocabulary. The indicators within writing are writing expression and knowledge and use of language and conventions. So you can see these are giving you additional detail about how students did in these indicator areas, or these are really areas that make up the entire exam. And so here we kind of talk about, again, the scores in relation to how students who met the standard overall, in terms of students who met expectations overall in ELA, how did your child do in each of these areas? So you can see in literary text, they didn't quite do as well as kids who met expectations overall. So they got a down arrow. In vocabulary, interestingly, this child actually did better, or as well as kids who met expectations overall in ELA. So you can see that you're going to be provided this additional detail as we go from the overall score in ELA to the reading and writing score, and then within reading and writing, you also get this additional information. And this gives you an idea, and I think communicates to parents, what is the English language arts test comprised of? Well, there's literary text, there's informational text, there's vocabulary, there's writing, and so on and so forth. And the information, there's also some brief explanation about what we mean by literary text and vocabulary and all of those things there. So we have very limited space in which to describe all of these things, but I think it gives the parents at least some level of detail and understanding of what the Parcc assessment is comprised of. This next slide really is just a very similar slide, but it's for mathematics. In this case, it's the Algebra 2 test. It's as Angela calls it, the culminating of the capstone Parcc mathematics assessment. And it has all the same features that you saw on the English language arts test in terms of the performance levels, the scale's the same. So the Parcc scales the scale from 650 to 850 runs through all the different subject areas and grade levels. The 700, the 725, the 750 threshold scores are the same. So you get, there's not this problem of, trying to interpret results from one grade level and one subject area to the next. We try to keep the metrics as consistent as possible so that they're memorable and easy to use. If you go to the next slide here, in mathematics, we don't have numerical subscores like reading and writing. So what we do have are those indicator scores like we had in English language arts. Here we have, and here the indicators are the major content, the additional supporting content, expressing mathematical reasoning, and modeling and application. So, and as you know, the expressing mathematical reasoning and the modeling and applications, Those are very associated with the mathematical practices, where the major content and the additional and supporting content really about how the student's doing on, conceptual understanding, procedural understanding, ability to answer some of the shorter questions, and the areas on the right are really associated with those more extended problems on the assessment. So that gives you an idea of how the parent report, if you will, is laid out. This is the next slide here. This is the back page to each of the reports. The back page is pretty much the same. I think there's some small differences between mathematics and English language arts, but you can see here there's some quick tips on how you can use the report and the kind of questions you might want to ask your teacher if you have a parent has a conference with the teacher, some guiding questions for them, a little bit more explanation about the performance levels and so on and so forth. You can read through that and see that this is just a teaser, if you will, of information for the parent. Again, we only had one side of a piece of paper. So I think, is it Angela or is it you, Callie, that are going to explain? Angela. Angela's going to tell you, you might have noticed that on these reports there were some links to, for parent, there was especially a link to a website called understandingthescore.org. Understandthescore.org, understandthescore.org. And that's written all over I think it's both in the front page and the back page of the parent report. It's there that they're going to get much more information about how they might use the report and things they can do at home to help their students succeed and so on and so forth. And I think Angela is going, Callie, okay.
I told you the wrong thing, Jeff.
Okay. Callie actually is going to talk a little bit more about those resources for parents to help them use this report and work with their child to be more successful. So I'll turn it back to Callie.
Great. And Jeff, before I get started, I'm actually going to turn it over to Angela to just talk a little bit about what parents need to know about those score reports and give some insight from the field. Angela?
Sure. So as we're messaging to the field, we're trying to emphasize that these are new tests. They're replacing our prior state tests, and they're measuring new state standards. They're guiding our mathematics and our English language arts instruction, and they really aren't comparable to our prior state tests. So when we look at the results, we're measuring new standards. We're measuring them in a new way, and we're trying to emphasize to parents that when you look at these reports, they're different than what you've seen before. And I think the resources that Callie's going to share in a few moments will be helpful in contextualizing that for parents. So that is one key message that we're trying to share with the field. And again, they're only one of several measures, including classwork, report card grades, and in-class performance that determine or demonstrate a student's academic achievement. They're not impacting, and of course it's a local decision, but we're not suggesting that they impact a student's GPA. And we would always advocate for the use of multiple measures in making high-stakes decisions and in looking at what really defines the profile of a student. These score reports should be a valuable tool for parents and teachers. And these supporting documents that Callie will point you towards should really help to draw together the suite of instructional resources that complement the information that's already on the score reports. But the report provides a deeper level of information to help understand where students are in their progress towards mastering these standards and where they might need some additional support. I know in some states having 5 levels of performance is new, and so that third level gives us maybe a little more realistic information about where students are, gives us more of a continuum where students are, and helps us to hopefully fine-tune our instruction around things that they can do pretty well, and then also some things that maybe students aren't doing as well. The test itself has moved away from multiple choice questions to ones that allow students to really demonstrate what they know and can do by writing more, solving some real-world problems, really demonstrating, justifying their answering, reading and analyzing more complex text, more complex mathematical items. They're more what we would define as critical skills in hopefully in more real-world context. But that means that the information that we're sharing, reporting on, looks different as well, and we're asking students to demonstrate that knowledge in different ways, so the results look different. And for that reason, the scores may be lower, not because kids know less, have not improved or learned less, or the instruction is not as good as it used to be, but the expectations have been raised. And we're all learning and we're transitioning, and I think it's important to remember that and to continue reminding ourselves of that, and also reminding our public of that, our parents and our students of that. And then this year's scores are a new baseline. They're not comparable to our prior assessments, and this is a place from which we will progress and measure against moving forward, but it's a learning opportunity for us this year and a new start. So Callie, I think the resources that you have can really help us understand how we can use the reporting that we'll receive directly, and then a myriad of different resources to help strengthen our understanding of the reports and what we can do instructionally to support students and families.
Absolutely. Thank you so much again, Angela. And we're gonna put you and Jeff in the hot seats very soon with the Q&A. But first, I want to make sure that we go through some resources that we have for educators, as well as resources that we have that are a complement to the Parcc School Report. So first up on your screen, that you're going to see a screenshot of the Educator Resources page on parcconline.org. These webinar recordings are all going to be posted there. The teachers one is already up, or principals one is already up. Teachers is going up. This will go up as soon as we have that recording. We'll also send the recording directly to you, so you won't have to go digging around. But really encourage you to go there. There's a lot of score report resources, as well as just things that have been created in concert with other organizations, such as teaching channel videos that have been created with our educator leader cadre around different professional learning uses of tools like the blueprints or the performance level descriptors. So really a wealth of information. We talk about Parcc as being an incredibly transparent process. And so now it's really well defined and really well articulated on this particular page. Next, you'll see that screenshot of understandthescore.org, which is live. So it's live before the score reports have actually gone out, which is very exciting. Yes, we absolutely encourage you as educators, as district leaders, to go ahead and dig in on this resource so that you can start referring parents there. The value of the score reports is that they are actionable. They give parents and teachers the specific information they need to support their child. Jeff talked a little bit about that. So does Angela. And Parcc has developed an online resource to help parents better take action to support their child's success. So this site that you see in front of you, and you can see that some parts are translated into Spanish. There are going to be other resources up there. You'll see a lot of different resources here. The score report guide. There's a video, how to help your child. So digging into a few more of those subclaim pieces about the test. And then very, very important, there's this little Your State tab. And so if you are, in fact, from Illinois, as Angela is, you can actually click on that and find the Illinois resources. So think of this as your one-stop shop to get to a lot of the resources that you would normally go rooting around for. It also includes links to interactive partner resources that are really outstanding, like Great Kids from Great Schools and Be a Learning Heroes Skill Builder, which I'm going to show you screenshots of here. So first, you'll see this Great Kids State Test Guide for Parents, really great resource where you can toggle back and forth. Parents can find parent-friendly explanations of the skills and content in each of the test categories and subcategories in both subjects. Again, it's very interactive. There are different video resources, and they've been slowly rolling this out with both our partners at the Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium and here at Parcc with the state. They contain the videos, sample problems to show their parents what their child should be able to do in each claim and walk them through. I'll say that some of the videos are quite entertaining and quite cute, but really great because you watch how a child is interacting to something that they're working on with one of the standards and how they reason through and get to the right answer. It also describes the skills a child needs to master in order to meet the expectations in each area. So again, when you look at these resources, you'll see consistent information and consistent language across the plane about how an individual child meets expectations and how to help them on their path to learning. Next, you'll see the Skill Builder from Be a Learning Hero, also a really great resource here. which actually asks you what's your state, what's your grade, your subject, your test area. So this is essentially a search engine that pulls up hundreds of great resources in each of these areas aligned to the Parcc categories. Parents can use their child's score report, so again, that alignment piece, to locate specific resources tailored to the test category where he or she may need improvement. And the resources are labeled as below, at or near, or above expectations to truly meet kids at their level. And again, that idea of mirroring the language that's on that report where Jeff showed you what that subclaim language looks like, very, very similar, very consistent. And so not just for parents, but also there for you as district administrators, as leaders. And finally, before we hand it over to do a little bit of Q&A, I want to run through some available instructional tools from Parcc. So some of these are things that are here, and some of these are things that are to come. So over the course of the next few months, Parcc will continue to release a number of instructional tools to help educators support students in their learning process. So first of all, I'll use my animation here. Practice tests are still available, and they're continuing to be released, refined, updated. These are found on the Parcc website. The links are found there. They're for grades 3 through 11. They include Braille and large print. They also include answer keys as well as a quick tutorial to get you started. So if you haven't dug into those practice tests or sample tests, highly encourage you to do so. Walk through them with students because they'll get a really great idea of especially the interactivity of the different item types as we move to computer-based testing in our state. Next, you'll see the K-2 formative tasks. They are now available to educators in Parcc states for use in early childhood education classrooms. These tools are intended to provide educators with instructionally useful information related to how students demonstrate knowledge, and they provide the appropriate level of information, so different grain sizes, to teachers about how to help students. The tasks gather information in a way that is invisible to students and is part of their daily learning. And these tools, like the speaking listening tools and like the diagnostic tools, were all developed in concert, hand in hand, with educators in the field saying, what is it that you need in order to feel successful in your classrooms? What does a good instructional tool look like? So if they look like things that you'd envision that you wanted to use in your classrooms, in your districts, it's because they really were developed with amazing input from the field, and cannot say enough about the wonderful educators that we've worked with in the state, with the SEAs over the years. The speaking and listening tools are also available, and they include videos, rubrics, and they're intended to help educators measure and better understand the students' grasp of speaking and listening Common Core State Standards in grades K through 12. These are also a great opportunity to really sit in your PLCs if you do cross-content work. They're not just for ELA literacy, they're not just for mathematics, but they are for use in science classrooms and social studies. In fact, the speaking and listening can really be a time to dig into the standards together and talk about how you support one another, how your schools support one another across the grades, across the subject areas. Next, you'll see, and I'm sure you are very excited about this piece of the pie here, the released items. So this year, Parcc will release one form's worth of items in both ELA and math for each grade, grades 3 through high school. The first release will occur in late October and will include items, annotations, model student work, scoring rubrics. They will first be available in PDF format, and then later the technology-enhanced items will be available, I think, a little bit later this winter. So these will be a great resource to help teachers develop formative assessments in their classrooms, learn more about the types of items on the test, get a better sense of what each performance level looks like, how students are doing. So that idea of the model student work, I know especially for the performance-based tasks, as we shift into the more rigorous standards, is incredibly important for teachers in the field and will really help you figure out what your building leaders need, what your teachers need. Next, you'll see the Partnership Resource Center, and I know this seems like a lot, but there's been a lot happening in the states over a pretty short period of time. The Partnership Resource Center is a trusted online location for educators and administrators to find critical information about the Parcc assessment design and implementation. So here, educators can get really great, useful professional resources built by Parcc, state partners, other partners. The PRC includes access to the K-2 formative tasks, the speaking and listening tools, will include the released items, will include links to those practice tests, the professional learning modules if you haven't dug into those yet, all of the technology readiness tools, associated materials, and both user-developed and Parcc-developed content. So any educator can log in and create an account to take a look around the PRC, and highly encourage you to do so because it'll continue to be populated with really high-quality resources. And it's also just really fun. As somebody that loves a good portal and a good way to dig through a lot of information, just really nicely laid out. Again, developed hand-in-hand with educators. And that's located at prc.parcconline.org. And lastly, here you'll see a little bubble around the diagnostic tools. So the diagnostic tools will launch in the fall of 2015 and include a range of subtests in both reading and math that pinpoint students' learning strengths and needs. These include reading subtests such as decoding, fluency, vocabulary, comprehension, and a reader motivation survey, which I'm really excited about as a former middle school reading teacher. And the mathematics subtests include comprehension and fluency for those grades 2 through 6. And then later, we'll see a writing diagnostic tool that will become available in 2016. So the diagnostics are intended to provide teachers results to help them design instructional plans, track student progress. They're available for grades 2 through 8. Again, really exciting too, because if you've ever taken an early look at some of the diagnostic tools, you'll see that they're, as I like to describe it, almost like a choose-your-own-adventure. So you can really, especially in mathematics, look at students, how they're doing on a particular standard, cluster of standards, a standards progression, and really modify that to what individual students need in your classrooms. So again, really exciting resources. So with that, we're going to go to questions, and this is again where I'm going to bring Angela and Jeff back up from the bench, and so bear with me for a second here while we go ahead and get started. And Angela and Jeff, I will go ahead and start fielding questions to you, and you're welcome to take either one. So the first question we got is, how will growth be determined since we transitioned from one state assessment to Parcc? So Jeff, Angela, you're welcome to take it from here.
Angela, you may want to talk about, for Illinois, what you're envisioning, and I might be able to pick up a little bit on that too.
Yeah, so in the first year, I mean, we truly are treating this first year of the assessment as a baseline in Illinois. So we won't have a measure of student growth until next year. And we may be a little unique because we also have the way that our teacher evaluation, educator evaluation system is laid out. The state assessment is not a required portion of educator evaluation. So districts have several ways that they can set up their educator evaluation system. They can use the state assessment, but it is not a required piece. They actually work with district-level committees to do that. So from that perspective, we're also not using it as a state-mandated portion of growth for evaluation. But in terms of accountability, it will be next year before we're able to incorporate student growth into like school and district accountability systems. I can only answer that for Illinois, though.
Yeah, and I would just say I think most states are in the same position in using the assessments from last spring as a baseline and measuring growth out from there. Some states, depending on their growth, how they measure growth, if they're using a student growth percentile, for example, it may be possible even to use a different assessment to and then look at Parcc results and actually report a growth measure. It is technically possible. I don't know if any states are doing that. But, you know, the parent report that I showed you did not include a growth metric, and it will after this year. So Parcc is planning to include on the parent report a growth metric as well, but obviously couldn't do that in the first administration.
Thanks, Jeff and Angela. So we had another question here about the availability of scores. And so the availability of the scores is a little bit later this year because it is the first year. So what's the plan for subsequent years?
Well, subsequent years, the report's going to come back much earlier, much closer to the end of the school year. So, I mean, that is the goal for the data to be provided back to schools and districts prior to the end of the school year. It might take us a few, you know, I think next year we'll get much closer to that, and that's the goal. They're just, you know, just practical difficulties, if you will, in doing that, but we're addressing them. Some of them are technical in terms of equating different forms of the test and actually getting, if you think of it, for these parent reports, we're printing 10 million pages of reports. So you can understand why it takes a little time to get it out, but we understand the high priority to get information back. I think, often some preliminary information can get back to schools and districts if, all the pretty reports aren't printed up. We're not waiting for that to occur. So our goal is to get information back as soon as possible. Within, if not within weeks, within a few months after the students take the test.
Thanks, Jeff. And I know that educators are really excited about that because of the possibility of being able to do forward planning for the next year in their districts. So, Angela, I think this is a really great question for you to field. So what resources are available to best provide direction for teachers to use data from Parcc to drive instruction and differentiate for student needs? So I think your position and your role of the state really leading this work in Illinois, what is it that you've seen in districts or with teachers that seems to be working for them as they prepare to receive the scores and move forward?
Well, I think a lot of the resources, Callie, that you pointed out are things that we intend to point districts towards in terms of how they can be tying directly to the information that they received. We're also looking forward to having availability of those roster reports once we have those, because we think that there's some utility in being able to the different portions of the subclaims and the subscores and really look at patterns that you would see across classrooms or across courses that you might be instructing or that are being instructed in your building or across your district, and looking to see where maybe there are in your curriculum that you can use to help address areas for improvement, and we're trying to look at it from that perspective. And the other thing we're doing here in Illinois is we're really looking forward to having the released items so that we can help kind of put wrappers around those parent score reports and say, here's what we're really thinking that we will use the released items to drive a lot of that conversation and say, okay, here's what performance, some of the student work around the released items, here's what performance at this level may look like, here's what it would really take to get to this next level, and then looking to districts to say what best practices are you using, and connecting districts to have those critical conversations about what best practices are in place that they really feel could move instruction, shift instruction, because it really is about communicating what is working well, and we're not in the position to tell people that there's one best way to do it, because the context in every district is a little bit different, but we can help, I think, to connect people to be having those conversations.
Thanks, Angela. That's great. So here's another question, and actually there are two related questions. The first one is, if a student doesn't finish a Parcc test, do they get all unanswered questions wrong? And the second question is related, is there a percentage of questions they must answer to score well on a particular subtest, such as math or ELA? So I don't know if you want to start off that one.
Yeah, so, they don't get any credit for things they don't answer. To get into a particular performance level is by earning a particular number of points on the test. You want to encourage students to try to answer as many questions as possible. There's no penalty for guessing, so you want to do that. And, so it's really a matter of just accumulating points. If you think about the test is compensatory in terms of getting into a particular performance level. You don't have to get a certain number of points in various categories, if you will. So, it's just about the overall number of points you achieve that gets you there. I hope that answered it.
Great. Angela, do you want to add anything to that?
I'm hoping that Jeff's answer covered it. The follow-up, I'll try, but I was thinking there's not a whole lot that I would add to what Jeff answered. I guess the one thing I would add is this is us, because we're asking students to demonstrate what they know and can do differently. I think I would add it's difficult to sort of guess your way through because most of the items are asking students to really demonstrate their understandings.
Yeah, Angela, that's a really good point because there aren't that many multiple choice answers on these questions on the test where you can guess a lot, especially on the computer-based, is you actually have to type in your answers. They're short answers, and there are some multiple choice where you can guess, but they're greatly reduced on this test, but basically because that's what educators said. They want to have less of that type of a test, more constructed response.
So I have a couple of other questions here, which I think that I can answer really quickly. One is, are the diagnostic tests available and live in both ELA and mathematics? Those are going to be live a little bit later this winter. We will make an announcement about that. I will encourage you that if you are interested in being part of the field testing districts that are doing the diagnostic, though, you're welcome to send me a direct message, and we can send you more information about that. But there is a soft launch that's happening with those tools, and there's a time for districts and schools in Parcc states to actually use all of those tools for free. So that does get at the next question, which is, are the resources that are available on the PRC available for free to Parcc states, to Parcc districts, to Parcc schools? Yes. Contact your state education agency for more information. They do have that login information for you. But go in there, play around with the tools, give feedback on speaking and listening, K-Tool. There are a lot of really great tasks there that can just really help jumpstart conversation. So those are great questions. And if you want more, you're welcome to send us another question, though. The other question here is, how can we access the archived webinar after today? We will send you a follow-up email. We will also post the webinar recording on parconline.org. So make sure to look out for that. Share it with folks. We'll tweet it out on Twitter, just like we've done with everything else. But hope you're able to share that information. And you will be able to download the PowerPoint template as well. So you'll have that information at your fingertips that you're welcome to use within your districts, within your schools. And then there's a last question here about the model content frameworks as we're winding down, about where they're available. Again, I highly encourage you to go to the Partnership Resource Center, that's prc.parconline.org, as a lot of the resources have been shifted over there. They also should be available on the Educator Resources page, but there has been some moving around on the website, so that's why you may see some things have moved a little bit. The MCFs are a wonderful resource for educators, but if you want to see more associated with those, please let us know, so we can continue to work with states to develop the right content for you. And then the final question, I'm sorry, this is just me talking, but I think a lot of these are kind of logistics questions here. Will you guys build a webinar, a webcast for specific training on how schools, districts might think about interpreting score reports, roster reports, et cetera? I know a lot of states actually have plans to do this within your districts, within your state. So I encourage you to contact your SEA, but also we'll absolutely promote that from the Parcc Consortium. So if something great is happening in Illinois and they have a great webinar going on about score report interpretation, we'll make sure to get that information out. If that's something that you really want to see, please let us know so that we can make sure that it's noted and things that we can develop. But in the meantime, encourage you, though, to go to that understandthescore.org website because it does have a wealth of information. The video about interpreting the score report is really good, but I know that you're asking about the weedier information that Jeff was discussing with the roster reports and Angela mentioned. So we'll continue to roll out information like that and training modules out to the state. So with that, I want to make sure that we have, I know we started a couple minutes late, so if you have any questions, make sure to get them in within the next minute. I'm not seeing anything else come in. So Angela, I know that you had a couple of closing comments for us before we say goodbye to all of our participants.
Sure. Before signing off, I just wanted to encourage you to take time to check out the resources that are on parconline.org. If you go / there to resources and then to Educator Resources, you'll be able to access these webinars that have been posted, the PowerPoint, as Callie mentioned. And then the score report resources, which include this Parcc Guide for Teacher Conversations that you can also download. If you're watching this live, you can download right off of the button in your control panel called Downloads, and it's the Parcc Guide to Teacher Conversations. And then if you're watching this recorded, it's right where I mentioned under the Educator Resources, under Score Report Resources. And this guide was developed in partnership with Be a Learning Hero. They conducted several focus groups with parents, and the guide includes the questions that parents were asking about the score reports when they saw them, along with the responses that they considered to be highly effective from educators. And, you know, as you well know, parents trust you. They trust the people that are in the classrooms. They trust the leaders in their districts the most. So we're here, state agencies at Parcc Inc., to help support you, but we acknowledge that parents are going to be coming to you for answers. And so we want to stand with you. We want to stand behind you to put the right tools in your hands and to acknowledge that you'll play the critical role in helping parents understand the score report and using it to support their children in moving forward in their understanding of the standards and their progress. So we hope that the information and resources we've shared today will help you to do that, and we also hope that you'll be communicating with us and learning with us and telling us what we can do to better support you. And with that said, we just want to thank you for your time. We know it's very, very valuable time, and we appreciate you sharing it with us today. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening.